And welcome back to another NBA Sesh. I'm very happy. Today's January 30th, 2024. We just finished watching the Knick game, and oh my God, the way they're playing is just phenomenal, especially after the OG trade. Even Precious Achua, did I say his name right?
Yeah.
He's playing very well. And it's funny because we just released Taj Gibson, 2 weeks ago? We had a goodbye, a farewell tribute, and all of a sudden he gets re-signed again. And the fans, people were even making fun of it on social media because, it's just funny that he keeps getting released and signed back. But it was really nice to see the fans chant and ask for him to play. You enjoy the game?
Yeah, the Knicks are playing great, and people are going to be hating and say, oh, yeah, not bad for a second-round exit. But I think that, the Knicks are actually really building something. And for the first time in a very long time, the GM and the front office is really putting together a strong team that you could really see it's like brick by brick. The OG trade was amazing. The Jalen Brunson signing was one of the best free agency signings
In a long time.
not just for the Knicks, but like the most underrated ones. Because Brunson was good, but he was no obvious superstar. I mean, he still has to be voted into the All-Star game, but he's definitely playing like an All-Star starter, no question about it. And then you have another steal, underrated move, which was getting Dante DiVincenzo on a really cheap contract.
Mm-hmm.
Today he just had
Career night.
high 8, the most 3-pointers made. And then you got OG, who has been a plus 239 with the Knicks. I think that's like historic, a perfect fit. This guy is a menace on defense on both ends of the floor, and he's the perfect 3-and-D guy that the Knicks want. And frankly, a guy that is hard to find in the NBA right now because a lot of teams wanted him.
And don't forget, Josh Hart had a career night as well. And Josh Hart and DiVincenzo and Brunson, they all played on the same college team, so that's really cool. And the Knicks won 8 straight games. Hopefully, Randall will be back soon. We really need him, despite his previous playoff disappointments. We still need him. And speaking of the Knicks, I'm actually, disappointed, but at the same time, I'm not disappointed that Brunson got snubbed from the All-Star lineup, and I'll tell you why. Because when you compare his stats to Damian Lillard's stats, the only thing Brunson is doing better than Damian Lillard is scoring maybe 2 points per game more, right? Other than that, they're pretty much equal. I know the Bucks are at a higher seed. I know the Bucks haven't been playing as well, and Damian Lillard has been a little disappointing because we expect so much from Damian Lillard. But at the same time, Damian Lillard always got snubbed when he was on the West. And it's nice to see, out of respect, a guy like him get the starting lineup in the All-Star game. And Jalen Brunson's still young. He has all the time in the world to get that starting position in the All-Star game. But I have no doubt in my mind that he'll be, in the reserve. What do you think?
Well, Jalen Brunson should have definitely got that start over Damian Lillard, no question asked. And the only reason why that didn't happen is because Dame Lillard by now is a brand name. First of all, this is his first career start because he's been Curry been getting that start when he was in Portland. So I think Dame is just he's a brand name on a top 3 team in the East. But his stats, like on paper, his stats look good. But he's averaging only a 28% from the 3-point line this season. And he's been shooting very consistently, and he's only averaging a 42% field goal, probably in due parts because of his 3-point percentage too. So it's not great. And for an offense that is like supposed to be top in the league, he's not doing great. So I think that I think Jalen Brunson. I would rather have Jalen Brunson over Damian Lillard.
Well,
on my
listen,
team
don't
for
get me
sure.
wrong. If it was up to me, I would put Jalen Brunson in there. That's why I said I'm disappointed. I'm not disappointed at the same time because I do respect Damian Lillard as a player. It's nice to see him get it, but it's politics. You know, it's a popularity contest and it's politics, right? Just like when Carmelo Anthony is one of the greatest players to play. I wouldn't put him in the GOAT conversation, obviously, but I think, you know, because he has that name and reputation, there's all this pressure by the Nuggets and the Knicks to retire his jersey, even though I kind of think he doesn't even deserve it, especially with the Knicks. And speaking of overrated, how about what's his name? Doc Rivers, the coach, getting hired for Milwaukee Bucks, right? There was actually a video making fun of it. And I'm gonna do a reaction video to it another time. But there was a video, an animated video online making fun of that, and it's like, what did Doc Rivers do? Right, he has one championship 16 years ago, and he had four amazing players. He had the big four: Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, Rondo. Of course, he's gonna get that chip, and he should have gotten at least one more, and he didn't. Ever since then, he had a kind of a stacked Clippers team with Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and those guys. And he didn't get a championship there. He was a Philly coach, you know. So if it wasn't for that one championship, I don't even think he'd get this job.
Well, there's also an interesting stat that Doc Rivers possesses that no other coach does. And, well, not that no other coach does, but he's the first coach in NBA history to have three different teams fail to advance from a best of 7 series after a 3-game-to-1 lead. So I think he's remembered more for that than he is winning that one championship.
Well, that's not good.
And he had great. So I feel like the pressure is really on him right now to win. Like if the Bucks didn't have that pressure to win championship or bust, now it's really on, especially on Doc Rivers. And yeah, I think I think the team is going to be better in terms of more all around play for sure. But so far, his record doesn't show that he could be successful in the playoffs. And I think the Bucks roster isn't that great either, which is another problem. And not necessarily his fault, but he kind of bought himself a problem.
So Stephen A. Smith said that if the Knicks continue playing like this and everybody's healthy, they can easily go to the conference finals, right? Third round. I think that's a bold statement. I actually agree. I think the Celtics are going to the finals as of now, unless the Knicks make a big move before the trade deadline. And it could be as something as getting Brogdon. Maybe it doesn't have to be that big a move, right? Maybe it's getting something like a Brogdon or maybe a DeJounte Murray, which I think DeJounte Murray wouldn't be a good fit, you know? But either way, I think the Knicks are going to go to the third round, but I think the Celtics are going to the finals. But I don't think getting Doc Rivers puts Milwaukee in the championship conversation. I really don't see him making that much of an impact. Even if you took a really successful championship winning coach, I don't even think he could put the Bucks are missing something. I think they're missing like at least one more player, a good role player to help them out.
Yeah, I think that it was weird. I understand why the Bucks fired Griffin. It was weird that they fired him at this point of the season, and I think
especially that they're the second seed, but they've been underperforming.
Yeah.
So
Candace Parker said this on the NBA and TNT. A lot of people said this where their record doesn't really speak to the way they've been playing. Like, they lost to Indiana 4 times. They barely beat the Pistons twice. The Pistons, like. Obviously, they're not that great, but at the same time, I'm not putting the full blame on the coach that got fired. I think he's going to be coaching again soon. It just really they're like Middleton just fell off. He's just not that same player. He had 2 injuries, and Lillard, he fell off in terms of being that lethal shooter and scorer, as we said earlier. And they don't necessarily have like a great bench either. So I do see the Celtics going to the finals for sure.
And with Damian Lillard though, Maybe he's used to being the man, right? And now he's not the man anymore. Now he's the Robin to Giannis's Batman. So maybe that will take some time getting adjusted. It's
That's
still
true. That's true.
possible. Look at Dallas; they've been doing better with Kyrie and
They're kind of also up and
Luca,
down.
but they fell off too. I think they're the eighth seed. They were like number 4 earlier in the year.
Yeah,
So
they're also kind of up and down with the way they've been. And again, it's just that you know what it is. It's just that shooting guard and point guard combo, the two offensive juggernaut players that don't play well. Like look at when Dame was in Portland with CJ McCollum, or another example that you wanted to talk about today was what's his name, Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland. We just heard that Darius Garland, he made the playoffs. I mean, he became an all-star the year after Sexton was traded. And
yeah,
Sexton did well in the Cavs. He averaged like almost 20 points a game at one point, a little over even.
it does work sometimes because don't forget Eric Bledsoe with Dragic in Phoenix.
That's another great example.
But then they got greedy. They put Isaiah Thomas into the mix, and that's where things went wrong. But you know what? I feel like it just doesn't work as much as it does work, right? It works.
Exactly.
So I think just because it worked in Phoenix once doesn't mean you should keep trying. I mean,
Because the best example is like look at when Luka was injured for a few games. Kyrie was playing like a superstar again because he had the ball in his hands more. He was able to set up guys. Like he was playing like that, classic Kyrie. And when Luka's back, he still plays well, but he just doesn't play as well as he could.
but
So you're
actually,
taking away from him.
but Luca actually did play well with Jalen Brunson when he was there. But Luca took away from Jalen Brunson.
And Jalen Brunson was clearly like the second, or he was clearly a shell of himself as he is right now.
He was undervalued in Dallas. They overlooked him because they had Luca. Luca just stole the attention, and it's you can understand. With Kyrie, it's not the case because Kyrie already made a reputation for himself. He's a veteran. But what's it called? What I wanted to say was, I lost my
Donovan
train of thought.
Mitchell and the Cavs.
No, it was something about yeah. All right, this is what I was going to say actually. So, what the league needs to learn is that you can't just take big names and just stick them together and think everything's going to work out. And this is why I'm very, very proud of the Knicks. And it's not because of James Dolan either. James Dolan finally said he's going to take a seat back. It's all because of Leon Rose. And Leon Rose, like you mentioned earlier, or before we did this podcast, you did tell me that you think Leon Rose deserves some kind of an award because, he took his time and patience. And this is what we wanted. This is what we Knicks fans wanted. We were tired of shopping for superstars and undressing for every team just to get these guys. Homegrown talent, build a foundation, build from the bottom up, and we're finally getting it, and it's so rewarding, honestly.
Yeah, and the proof is there by getting guys like Josh Hart, who we got them, they started winning more games, and you never expect I would never think oh, let's go get Josh Hart, we need him, Derrick Rose also when they got him that year. Yeah, Derrick Rose is a name. He's obviously not like that star he once was, but he helped them tremendously. Even Hartstein, great pickup. Now he's a starting center. That now he could be starting on any team as a center. So all these guys are really good, but I think where Phil Jackson fell off when he was on the Knicks, when he became the GM, was that he wanted to implement the triangle system, but he couldn't coach, which was the big problem. And the second biggest problem was that he wanted Melo to buy into that, but he didn't want to coach Melo because he couldn't, right? Because whatever he had, he wasn't as healthy or whatever. So now you got a guy like Melo who was used to iso ball, having a coach that never coached triangle really before as much, trying to teach the whole team how to play, and at the same time, it was hard for Melo to pick that up. So maybe Melo could have been good at that if Phil coached them, but I feel like the Knicks went wrong at that during that time when it should have been one or the other. You either pick Melo or you coach the triangle as a coach and have Melo on your team. It's one or the other, and that's where his legacy was a little tarnished, Phil Jackson, because he couldn't. He was just a terrible GM for the Knicks.
And you see, this is why leadership is so important. And because you mentioned Phil Jackson was an excellent leader when he coached the Lakers and he coached the Bulls. But speaking of the Bulls, this is why I think it's silly for Michael Jordan to get upset at Jerry Krause for saying that organizations win championships. Maybe Jerry Krause, I don't remember if he just said not the players and the organizations. If that was the case, fine, that was smug of Jerry Krause. But I think it's so stupid and immature where both of them have to say, yes, it's the organization and it's the players, because I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. If we take this New York Knicks team we have assembled now, okay, and you have that terrible leadership that we had back, during the
years.
Stephon Marbury days when, Isaiah Thomas was in charge of everything, and you had a bad coach and a bad organization, we would not be winning games the way we're winning games now. Yes, we got to give players credit to the players like Jalen Brunson, of course, and the whole team. But you see how important it is to have a good organization? Very, very important to have the right leadership. And you're right. If Phil Jackson himself coached the Knicks, if he was able to coach the Knicks, maybe they would do better. You can't just throw anybody in there and say, hey, teach the triangle.
Exactly.
All right, fine. Derek Fisher, because he played under him. But Jeff Hornacek is not a triangle guy. You know what I mean? He should have tried looking for a triangle guy. Kurt Rambis was a triangle guy, but obviously he wasn't good enough to coach the Knicks.
Also, Derek Fisher was a terrible coach to know how to play it and actually teach are two different things.
Exactly. Like, no disrespect to Michael Jordan, the GOAT of the GOATs. To me, he's the greatest player that ever played. But his decision-making is terrible. He couldn't run a successful franchise with the Hornets. I heard he had issues, the same kind of issues when he was a partial owner on the Wizards. And I heard the Wizards didn't even want him anymore because he kept making bad decisions. And that's why I think players shouldn't get too involved, right? Jordan wanted Jerry Krause to draft somebody. Jerry Krause said no, and they had beef because of it. Jerry Krause ended up being right. I think the players should just focus on being the player. Yes, throw your 2 cents, throw your input, of course, but don't make this headbutting thing. Don't make this, you know what I'm saying. Don't make this into a power struggle. And I think we see that.
Can't have too many.
We see that happening a lot in the league today.
You can't have too many chefs in the kitchen.
Exactly, perfectly said. Speaking of reputation, Kevin Durant, I think, is trying to take advantage of his reputation and say that he deserves and he must be in the GOAT conversation. Do you think Kevin Durant needs to be in the GOAT conversation? Because I don't think so. I'll tell you why after, but do you think?
Well, to me, a GOAT is obviously what it stands for, greatest of all time, right? And so who is he comparing himself to? Is he one of the best to play? Yes, but without Steph Curry, he's just another Carmelo Anthony. Except, like Gilbert Arenas, I heard a video of his earlier this week saying that Melo is actually a better offensive player because he has more moves. You know, he has that post-up game. He's more of a bully in the paint. You know, Durant's a better shooter, yes, but without Curry, how many rings would he have won? And, you know, look at what's going on right now on the Suns.
Yeah. So I always thought Kevin Durant was better than Carmelo Anthony, but now you make a good point, because if we stuck Carmelo Anthony into that Warriors team, they could have been winning those championships with Carmelo Anthony as well, very easily. Here's why I think that Kevin Durant does not deserve to be in the GOAT conversation. I don't need stats, okay? I don't care about stats. Here's the scenario. Kevin Durant is a great player, superstar, all-star, whatever, but not the Mount Rushmore, not the GOAT. Why? He was in OKC. They were up 3-1 versus the Warriors. They lost. They choked. They lost. And instead of, trying to build with that same team, or fine, you can't play with Russell Westbrook. I get it. But no, you go to the team that beat you, that was fully stacked. They already won without him, and he helped them get 2 more rings. Fine. But I understand if the Warriors never won with Kevin Durant, without Kevin Durant, I should say. Fine. He came, he hooked them up with the 2 rings. Great. But they already won. So you go in there, fine, you get the 2 rings. And you know what's even more disrespectful? When he leaves, they win without him. So you know who's in the GOAT conversation, in my opinion? Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Because that was pretty cool what Steph Curry did. He won without Kevin Durant. He won with Kevin Durant. And then when Kevin Durant leaves, he wins again without Kevin Durant. One of the greatest shooters to ever play, probably the greatest shooter of all time. I wouldn't say the best point guard. That belongs to Magic Johnson. But the best shooter to ever play the game. Steph Curry. Kevin Durant, unless he can win a couple of championships without the Warriors, and it's not looking good. It's not looking good. He couldn't do it with OKC. He couldn't do it with Brooklyn. Brooklyn was a disaster. And Phoenix is looking like a disaster. And he wants to be in the GOAT conversation? Give me a break.
To be fair to KD, if he didn't step on that line, they would have won. Right?
When?
That was 2 years ago.
Wait, who was he with?
Shoot. I gotta look this up.
All right, look it up.
But what I was gonna say was him and Curry played great together. It's kind of like LeBron and D Wade. Not all superstars could play together and share the ball like that. Durant was literally a plug and play into that system. He didn't miss a beat, and then it also helps when you had peak Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, peak Draymond Green, who actually played well and was in boxing and wrestling people on the floor. And then you had other great role players, so that definitely helps. And if he didn't leave, they would have had the NBA on lock. They would have been winning multiple rings.
And you see, like, the reason why we can't even say anything about LeBron James in that regard is because LeBron James took the Cavs to the finals by himself versus the Spurs. Well, he had a surrounding team, but you know what I'm saying. Then, fine, he goes to Miami, gets the 2 rings. He needed Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh to get it done. Should have won more, but anyway. He goes back to Cleveland. He wins a championship for Cleveland, right? Right there. That alone puts him into the GOAT conversation. And then he goes and he gets a ring with the Lakers. If Kevin Durant were to go to Oklahoma City Thunder to help them win, but you know what? I feel like the Oklahoma City Thunder doesn't even need Kevin Durant. They're stacked with young talent. They might not win it this year. They might not even go to the finals this year. But within the next few years, they're not only going to go to the finals, they're going to win it all with the stacked team they have.
Yeah. So 2 years ago when he was in the Nets, they're playing the Bucks in the conference final, and he stepped on that line. When he shot a 3, it was counted as a 2, and it was overtime. They lost that game.
Okay, who did the Bucks play that year in the finals? That's when they won it all,
That's
right?
when they won it all, yeah.
Okay, so you're saying that if Kevin Durant didn't step on the line, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's like saying, oh, if this guy didn't get injured.
But you know what? It's like coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And it's...
and he also had Kyrie and Harden, so...
And it's kind of like in the Fast and the Furious Part 1, when Paul Walker told Vin Diesel, oh, I almost had you. And Vin Diesel says, a win is a win. You know what I mean?
Almost, yeah.
So...
Listen, the Knicks almost beat Jordan too, you know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
a lot of almost happens in the NBA. That doesn't really count. There's no stat for almost. And like KD's now, he's gonna play the Nets in the next few days, and he even said like, I hope they don't do a tribute video because like we didn't do anything for them. And I give him props.
Well,
they did.
Yes, that's where I give Kevin Durant props. That's where he's humble. I think he just needs to show us a lot more before we could put him into the GOAT conversation. And all he has to do, in my opinion, is perhaps win a championship without the Warriors. If he could do that, if he could at least get one more ring, fine.
Well, he's not going to win on the Suns, and it's not necessarily his fault. It's not Booker has been playing great. I think Booker like elevated his game, but it's not. It's the fault of the leadership and the people who built that team.
Well, that's another example. Oh, let's just put a bunch of names together.
Exactly.
Booker, Durant, Bradley Beal. How about everybody else? How about all the role players, you know? It's not enough just to have names. And I think that's why maybe LeBron lost with the Heat against the Mavs. But at the same time, they had a lot more talent than Dirk Nowitzki had, in my opinion.
They had a great all-around team. You know, they had Birdman.
Well, they didn't have Shane Battier, I think, that first year. And Shane Battier
they
was
didn't have
huge.
Ray Allen either, right?
No, and they didn't have Ray Allen yet.
But still, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, and LeBron James.
Speaking of the Warriors, though, because we mentioned Steph Curry, apparently it's up to him if he wants to break up the team or not. And I think, first of all, it's not fair to put it on him like that because, number one, what's he going to do? Say yes and then have the team hate him for that? Can't do that to his friends. They're like brothers, you know? They won rings together. You can't just say, yeah, get rid of
business.
You know, I get it, but Steph Curry is not that kind of guy. He's not like a Jordan or a Kobe to say something like that, in my opinion. But I think Steph Curry won 4 championships with the Warriors. He should retire with the Warriors. You know, there's no point of him going ring chasing. And the reason why I even say this is because I feel if you're going to break up the team, Steph Curry is already at that age. I feel like he's going to retire in a few years. You know what I'm saying? So for him to stay with a rebuilding
He's 35.
team, yeah. How many more years do you think he has left? 2, 3, 4?
2? No, dude, he's got at least, he could play till 40. I mean,
no, I don't think so. And I'll tell you, I don't think so. I don't think so because I called it a long time. I wish we had a podcast back then because I called it when Steve Nash was in Phoenix, right? Oh, he has young boy legs. He's playing like a young guard. I'm like, this is not going to last. He gets traded to the Lakers in the offseason, and guess what? As soon as he starts playing with the Lakers, he breaks down, and he was never the same, and he was pretty much done.
He had a bad back injury, but you're right. Anything could happen. Anything. I think but if you look at like the trajectory, the way he's been playing.
Look, I wish Steph Curry the best. I think he's a fantastic player. I like him. 35, you're saying? He's 35? Even if he doesn't have an injury or anything, he's going to naturally slow down.
Yeah, even if he's
how effective is he going to be?
No, even if he slow down, he's going to be pretty good.
But not to lead a team.
Maybe not to lead a team, but his shooting is still going to be there. He might be a little slower, but his shooting won't leave him.
Okay, but is shooting enough? So the thing is this. If the Warriors decide to break it up, then they should trade Steph Curry. And, you know, not out of disrespect, but more like, look, man, you deserve better. You don't deserve to be a part of a rebuilding project. Go to another team, and nobody's gonna knock him for ring chasing. He doesn't need to chase rings. He has 4 rings. He's in the GOAT conversation. So it's just kind of like not to have a really dull retirement, you know?
Like the Warriors really fumbled it because they had a chance to really be at that dynasty, and they were for a few years, but I think it is dumb for them to pin it on Curry. Oh, it's up to him. If they have a chance to trade Clay to improve the team a lot more, they should have. Yeah, it's hard to break it up, but you know, Clay's at the end of his career in terms of like who he was. He thinks he's still that guy, but he's not. He's just not the guy.
Yeah.
He's not the Clay that he thinks he is. He's still good. He's still good.
But even Steph Curry, I've been watching him play, and I don't know. He just doesn't seem as confident. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. Like maybe shooting is not like as sharp as it once was. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
Well, he's still averaging 40% from the field, I think. But that Laker game, you know, he played like that superstar that you know he is. Even Klay Thompson played well, but I think they're definitely going to trade Wiggins. You know, they still have that big man problem as they always did. it's also a little bit of the coach. You gotta question the coach a little bit in his rotations and things like that.
Kaminga, I know, is not happy. It's like it's such a
Chris
mess.
Paul, they basically lost. I mean, like Jordan Poole is playing well for them, but now they got Chris Paul and he's injured. You know what I mean? So it's like that's like a dead weight right there. Draymond Green has been in and out of suspensions, and he's also just lost. That team's a mess, and they need to make some trades, like get like a DeMar DeRozan or someone who's got that star potential, or a former star or a current star that could really play and hold them down. Because adding a guy like DeMar to the lineup, I think will make them in that conversation again to
Look, when
contend.
Jordan retired after winning the 3 in a row, he had Scottie Pippen. Okay, now Scottie Pippen wasn't as healthy, but Jordan believed that they could have won again if Jerry Krause brought everybody back. He had him. Kobe Bryant had Pau Gasol. The point I'm trying to make is that Steph Curry currently doesn't have a co-star.
Yeah, exactly.
Klay Thompson is no longer that co-star. If they can bring back, and I know I'm being ironic. It's ironic that I'm saying this, but if they could bring back Kevin Durant to be his co-star, to be Steph Curry's co-star, then you can build on that, right? That doesn't necessarily put Kevin Durant in a good position for his legacy, but at least that puts the Warriors in a position to win again, right? If they can't get another star to play with Steph Curry, then perhaps they should just blow up the team and move forward, because anything else is just kind of like a band-aid fix, and it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch the Warriors. They're not even in the playoffs anymore, right? Are they at least in the play-in tournament? I think they are in the play-in tournament, right?
Yeah, I think they're in the playing tournament, but they got. I'm just looking at how many picks the Golden State Warriors have. Um, and I think first of all, yeah, the Suns are not gonna give up KD, just because they could compete and sell
I was
tickets.
just saying.
But that would be interesting to see. I think the Warriors have picks, and they have guys like Kuminga and Moody and Brandon Pod they can move and get KD and that and Nurkic to
Well,
go to to go to to go to Golden State. Trade Draymond, because obviously KD's the one to play with Draymond. I don't blame him. And they could make the contracts work. And with the picks and assets, yeah, but then you got to give up. You got to trade Booker also. Booker's not going to want to stay there.
so here's the thing, though. If I'm the Warriors, I'm going to stay put. I'm going to see what I can do in the summer. If you can't get Curry a co-star, blow up the team.
Well, you know what? They still have they still have enough assets to make a big splash before the trade deadline and turn things around. Because
Well, I hope so.
look what the Lakers did last year. They got a few role players and they turned it around. I think Warriors have even more, and there's a lot of guys available that could make a difference. The thing is, you don't want to just like do it just for half a season. You want to do it so that team could be intact for another good 2 seasons at least, because you're gonna be giving up a lot of assets. They should have gave up. They could have got Terry Rozier. The Heat, that was a steal, even though the Heat has been losing.
Yeah.
They could have got Siakam. That would have been a huge help for them. But they didn't want to do that. And I think a guy that might be available might be Carl Anthony Towns.
Well, Carl Anthony Towns, yes, I think I think he could help a team, but I think Carl Anthony Towns is definitely overrated. Yes, I understand he had a 62-point game, but
They lost that game to Charlotte.
yeah, it's like, how do you have a big night and then lose?
And then the coach.
Same thing with Devin Booker, no? Didn't he have like a big night and they still lost?
Um, I think they won that game.
Oh, they won. My bad. But either way, Carl Anthony Towns a little overrated, but I think he could help, and I think it's worth trading for him. Um, but what I wanted to mention,
Well, that's fine because
what?
Booker also had 70 points, but he still lost. So I feel
Yeah,
like,
so I was right. Booker did
but
lose,
that was
right?
that. But that was wait, was that like recently? I forgot. But the reason why I mentioned Carl Anthony Towns is because, last time we mentioned him, there's rumors of him coming, potentially the Knicks being interested in him. People were saying, why would the Wolves trade him? They're doing so well, chemistry and all that, and I get it. But then when I saw that game, I saw how he was trying to play hero ball, and the coach clearly called him out. He was saying it's disgusting play. There's no team ball. And then there's another game where he got the ball in his hands. Anthony Edwards being double teamed. He passed it to Cat. Cat took a step back three to try to win the game, and he missed by a lot. Who does that? You're not James Harden. You're not that kind of guy who shoots like that. Why would you do that?
It's like he's trying to play. It's like he's playing NBA 2K or something. Like, who does that?
Yeah, and I think like I would rather have a guy like Jonathan Kuminga on the team, who's also a rising star, and maybe another role
You mean
player.
if you're the Wolves?
If I'm the Wolves, and another role player, who they have a lot of, to instead of Cat, even like, I know Chris Paul sucks now, but even him, like a veteran guy like that off the bench for like 15 minutes a game when he's healthy, he'll provide a lot of that's a lot he could provide.
Well, besides Carl Anthony Towns, you know who I want to see the Warriors get? Donovan Mitchell. Because
Warriors?
yes, because first of all, the Cavs, when Donovan Mitchell's not playing, Darius Garland does well. When Darius Garland's not playing, Donovan Mitchell does really well. Look, how many games do they win in a row when Darius Garland is injured?
They won like 8 in a row.
Right. So they can't play together for some reason. They take away from each other. It's fine. Donovan Mitchell doesn't want to be in Cleveland anyway. Okay? If you're the Warriors, you get Donovan Mitchell. That's a perfect co-star for Steph Curry. I think they can be relevant again. Well, so if they could get Karl Towns and Donovan Mitchell, contender.
You never know, but I don't see, it's hard to see how, like, Curry's a very unselfish player. So I feel like because Curry is that superstar, he could kind of take a step back, and quotations, because it's going to be the illusion of him taking a step back to adjust to Donovan Mitchell's play, but he's still the star of the team, no question asked. But that's the only way I see them playing, because he's a ball dominant guard. And I think Donovan Mitchell should be a starting point guard for another team because, like you said, Darius Garland plays so much better when Donovan Mitchell is out and vice versa. And Mitchell's proving that, he could lead a team. But, I mean, come playoff time, But, like, I would see him, like, let's say, on the Sixers, with Embiid. Or being a starting point guard and taking a team to the next level. Like CJ McCollum is, even though he's an average player.
So with the Warriors, I see what you're saying, but I think with Steph Curry, he could make it work because he had Klay Thompson at the time, back in the day. Steph Curry and Klay Thompson were both ball dominant. And then they bring in Kevin Durant into the mix. Now you have 3 ball dominant guys, and they still made it work. So I think Steph Curry can make it work with Donovan Mitchell.
I don't think that Klay Thompson's necessarily ball dominant.
At the time?
He could move without the ball a lot, and that's what, that's why that system worked so well. They can make it work, but they're also lacking in defense right now, and they're still lacking that big man. You know what I mean? They get crushed in the paint. They're a small size team. Wiggins just has not been himself. He's just a role player. He regressed again to the way he was before.
Because he's not part of that winning culture, that hype. He needs to be a part of that, and the Warriors are no longer that.
Well,
That's
he
why.
was that last season, wasn't he?
I think Wiggins, he'll be fine if he goes to like if Wiggins played for the Knicks right now, or
He's
if
like
he
a
played for the
Harrison Bar-
Celtics, he'd be doing well.
Wiggins is like a Harrison Barnes, but certain teams will expect more from you. They expect more from Wiggins, than they do from a Harrison Barnes.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you're selected first overall, right? Um, but I gotta say, there's something about these Philly guys that they got drafted. Something's off with them, right? Like, look at Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid now is everybody's making fun of him. They're clowning on him for being scared to play the Nuggets. He's scared to face them because he's never available to play against them. And what is it with Embiid? Like, people put him on a pedestal because on the other podcast you mentioned why Embiid is not as good as he is, like he's a little overrated, and people were not happy in the comments section. But look at the facts, look at the stats, right? Like, why are they upset with you just saying it? It's ridiculous.
Well,
He's overrated.
They're probably Philly fans, and if I was a Sixers fan, I'll also be like, I wouldn't want to face the truth.
Well,
It's
you
true.
got to face the truth. Like we faced the truth when we realized Carmelo Anthony, and later on RJ Barrett,
RJ Barrett,
RJ
yeah.
Barrett. We realized, yeah, he's not. Yeah, I feel that like we were delusional, thinking RJ is going to be our next star, and we finally came down to earth. And especially because we read a lot of the comments were like, yeah, these people are right. We're just hypnotized. He's not going to be that guy for us. And funny enough, he gets traded really shortly after. But anyway, and then look at Ben Simmons. Like, what a disappointment Ben Simmons is. And Ben Simmons actually came back. He nearly had a triple-double. Yeah, whatever. It was a decent game off the bench. But it's crazy to me that I think he has so much potential and talent. There's just something in his head that's not letting him be that guy. And it's such a shame. It's such a waste of talent.
Well, you know what it is? I think it's number one. If he really is going through those tough injuries, we can't accuse him of anything. But the people are saying that he's just a little soft. But the other thing is that I think why people are getting on him for is that each summer he posts videos of how he's like shooting in the gym and he's like, yeah, comeback season, and everyone's joking he's gonna be the rookie of the year because he barely ever plays. But like, don't post those videos. Don't say that you're gonna come back and be the superstar when you clearly have never shown that you could be. He could be a great role player, but he's got to like humble himself and be like, yeah, you know what? I'm just not that guy.
So, I think you're right, because if he posts those videos, he puts so much pressure on himself.
Yeah.
'Cause now he has to deliver on his promise. If he just doesn't say anything and there's no expectation, then he can really surprise people and whatnot. Now, when you say role player, it's interesting because we saw a meme recently where it said that Dennis Rodman, one game, he had 0 points. And how many rebounds? Like 49?
49.
49 rebounds. And listen, people always think it's about the points. But if you could focus and provide something else, like a ton of assists, a ton of rebounds, some steals, some blocks, and heavy defense, it doesn't have to be all those things combined. But if you could specialize in something, then, everybody always thinks it's about the points, So,
But Rodman was also one of the best defenders also. So it's not like you have, what's his name? Andre Drummond. Great rebounder. I think he doesn't get enough credit, but he's just not like that big man defensive stopper. You know what I mean? So that's probably why he doesn't get that floor time.
I think it's all about maturity, and it's about accepting it. Because, look, I'm not going to compare myself to NBA players. I'm nowhere near as good, right? Not even to be a college player, but I love basketball. I've been playing basketball my entire life. And when we were playing a lot of games at the gym with a bunch of other guys, I love being an offensive player. I love scoring. And this only happened in my early 30s, where I realized this. Like, I wasn't getting the ball. When you play ball at the gym, people are ball hogs. And I even said something like, you guys should like distribute the ball more. I want to get more touches. And the guy kind of flipped out on me. He's like, what are you talking about? Blah, blah, blah. So then I'm like, you know what? Instead of arguing with them, instead of being upset and not playing, I want to play. So instead of worrying about not getting the ball and being all, sad about it, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to emphasize on rebounds and playing defense. And I did that. I really went out of my way to play strong defense and rebounds. I didn't even care about touching the ball. I didn't care about scoring points. And later on, they started to trust me and they gave me the ball more and I would score more. Now, this happened in my 30s. There were plenty of times I played in my 20s and as a teenager where I played with ball hogs. They didn't want to share the ball, right? But I wasn't mature enough to say, oh, I should do other things. I was just being, I was being very sour about it. So I think it's all about maturity. I think a lot of these players need to realize, look, I don't need to score all the time. Like OG. OG doesn't need the ball in his hands like RJ Barrett did. And with him on the team, we're doing so much better. So,
And I think number one, if OG was able to have more plays, he probably would score more. But I think what you said is right about how a lot of NBA players probably feel like, where they don't have to, they're scorers, that's their role, and because of that, they lack on defense. Because you're right, it's energy, it's more effort, and I guess it's not as rewarding in terms of like, unless you get a steal or a block, yeah, it's instant reward. But that defense is like, you don't really see that reward like you do when you score. You see the points. So I think because of that, a lot, and because defense is also not emphasized as much now, a lot of players just don't know how to play defense, or they don't
want to. I think they don't want to play.
And that's that is what the difference is between guys like Kobe, Jordan, and guys like LeBron and Durant. It's just that they're monsters on both ends of the floor, and a guy like Durant is not. LeBron is not as good of a defender. So I think that makes a big difference. But going back to Embiid real quick, unless you want to say something.
But LeBron's not lazy.
Oh, no.
I think LeBron really does try to play defense. And this is what makes, and hold that thought about Embiid because I do want to talk about that more. But I think that's what makes somebody a GOAT, superstar, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James. These guys, offensive guys, but also playing defense. It's not easy to do both. I remember when, we played basketball, it's very hard to be an amazing defender and have an explosive offensive game. And that's why if a guy like Luka can't play defense and all he wants to do is score, I don't care if he gets 70 points a game. If you can't play defense, then I don't think you're part of the GOAT conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And LeBron especially, I mean, he still does this now sometimes at being almost 40, but when he was on the Heat and the Cavs running back on the down the court, swatting away shots before they hit the layup, like he definitely did hustle like that. But there's still a difference between the defensive stopper that Jordan and Kobe was versus LeBron James.
Yeah.
And regarding Embiid, I love the way Embiid plays. I think guys like him are really rare in the league. The big men who have the great inside game, who could move their feet, don't only shoot threes. Like Towns shoots a lot of threes. I think that's why I think he's a little overrated. But he's a monster, and he's a great defender. He's a better defender than Jokic.
Who?
Jokic.
No, who's the better defender than
Embiid.
Embiid, okay.
Yeah. But when it just comes to when it comes to the playoffs and crunch time in the playoffs, the numbers don't lie. It's there, and I hope he does actually win, because I want to see those kind of guys win.
I know I like Embiid. I want to see Embiid win a championship, but I think Embiid just can't be the Batman. He needs to be the Robin to someone. That's all.
Absolutely, yeah.
So is that all you wanted to say about Embiid?
Yeah.
All right. On that note, I think that's it. I think we have some good coverage. So
yeah.
until next time. All right. See ya.